Want to talk WWE?
Not really, but I mean, we can touch in real quick here.
Let's start off with Raw and last week's Raw, and then we'll talk about the Triple H appearing on Austin's podcast. So it looks like
Seth Rollins has a penis.
He's got a penis, but we'll get into that. But it looks like we might have another triple threat at WrestleMania again. The news is that Vince might have seen the error of his ways a second time and be like, maybe Daniel Bryan should be in the main event of WrestleMania again.
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about this without talking about the podcast at the same time, because, that's something that Triple H really kind of... it's not like it slipped, but he kind of said that there's one guy calling the shots, and people can lob ideas at him, but it's still one guy calling the shots, and he kind of saw the reaction afterward and realized, fuck.
Triple H basically threw Vince under the bus and said, he's the guy, what he says, which is correct. It's his company still. Right. He has majority ownership.
He threw him under the bus in a very business type manner. Like, yeah, he's the guy calling the shots, and so that's why this happened.
So basically, the way it's going to happen is the Fastlane pay-per-view coming out. It's going to be they basically acknowledge, like, Daniel Bryan comes in the ring and acknowledges that, hey, I was stripped of the title. I never got a title shot back for it. I should at least be entitled to that, which is correct logically. And then Reigns comes out and says, "Oh, I deserve it." And then they said, and then Rollins comes out and yells at both of them, and said, "Hey, blah blah blah." And so they said, "Well, why don't you, Reigns? They acknowledge the boos. Hey, Reigns, if everyone's booing you and people don't believe in you, why don't you put all those doubters to rest and fight Bryan for the chance to go to WrestleMania?" And that's what's going to happen to Fastlane. The winner's going to WrestleMania. And so they're trying to tweak the character to more back to like the badass, not talk as much, do awful Bugs Bunny quote promos that he was doing. But it's going to be interesting in that there's going to be some sort of weird DQ where they're both probably going to end up in the main event of WrestleMania.
I really don't want that. I wish there.
I had no interest. I already said it. I had no interest adding him in. They ruined their shot with me. Dan Bryan should have won the Rumble. Bottom line, kaput.
No, if they can write the story in an interesting way,
they won't.
I'm okay. They won't. But if they can, I'm okay with that. The predictable outcome of Bryan winning the Rumble would have been nice, but I don't need that to be interested in WrestleMania. What I need to be interested in WrestleMania is a good fucking card.
Well, but the story of Bryan having to fight his way back to the rematch that he deserved anyway after getting stripped, that was the story enough.
You're asking way too much from WWE right now. Okay, give me a good card. Just show me a card that's going to be fun to watch.
Undertaker versus Wyatt, Sting versus Triple H, Ziggler versus no one, Daniel Bryan versus Lesnar versus Reigns. That doesn't.
Did you say Ziggler versus Cesaro?
Ziggler versus no one.
Yeah.
Cesaro versus no one. They'll win the 30-man. They'll both be in the 30-man onto the Giant Battle Royal again.
Cesaro versus the Grease Trap.
But what's interesting is that the Triple H podcast after that Raw last week sort of cemented the thinking behind it, because one of the first things that Austin says, again, this is on a wrestling podcast on WWE.
Yeah.
Is kayfabe dead? Yep. Did you ever think that you would even, on a WWE program, you would hear that?
That question was asked 2 or 3 times. Or no, Austin asked it, and then later on, when discussing Reigns and things like that, Triple H once again brought up the notion that kayfabe is dead. I mean, but the thing is, and they do kind of mention in the podcast too, I don't think any real wrestling fan wants kayfabe to be dead. I think every wrestling fan wants to be taken along for a good ride, a good story.
It's a soap opera after all, yes.
Kayfabe is great when it's done well. Like, convince me that I can trust in your kayfabe. Again, basically is what I want. Like, show me that you can write me an interesting story, and I'll stop bitching about what's going on behind the scenes on a fucking podcast.
Yes. So basically, the way I had some tweets about why Reigns winning the Rumble was bad, but it was like someone had an Avengers sort of parallel was like, say you're watching the Avengers, and then they kill Captain America off 20 minutes in, and then Hawkeye ends up being the one that saves the day at the end.
Yeah.
That's basically what the Royal Rumble was. You know, it's like, oh, okay. You know, it just doesn't make any sense from a narrative standpoint. This is a narrative.
Yeah.
What's unique about pro wrestling is that it's an ongoing narrative that can change week to week.
It's supposed to be a fluid narrative.
Yes.
And that's something that I do think we are slowly starting to see, especially with how they're working this right now.
Yeah.
Is that because for so long it was a fluid narrative, and then it became this rigid thing where fuck the fans, this is how we're doing it. Especially like during the partially because they were doing it so fast, but especially during like the Attitude Era and the end of WCW, like. It doesn't matter what the fans want. This is how it's going.
Let's push it.
And now we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, well, fuck, that pay-per-view is awful, and we need to keep subscriptions up, so we're going to re-edit this.
When you have the number one trend for 24 hours of cancel W Network, that made them listen.
Yeah, exactly.
That made them, whoa, maybe we have to listen to the fans a little bit.
I'm just trying to picture Vince, like, sitting there, like, trying to get this all soaked in.
I think Vince, it's literally, Vince is out. I mean, I think Vince is out of touch. He's 70. He's out of touch, obviously.
Yeah.
Because for him to make the same mistake 2 years in a row, not having Bryan win the Rumble, not even one of the years, it's like,
it also
come on.
makes me dislike him a lot, though, because it means he doesn't listen to anyone.
And he always said that he listens to the fans, which was why when the podcast with Austin the month before, he says, oh yeah, when Austin brought up Cesaro being buried, he's like, Austin's like, this guy's getting the biggest cheers after winning the Battle Royal. He was hot, and then you put him with Heyman, and then McMahon's like, well, he didn't connect with the fans. He connected with the fans. By doing a giant swing move and doing brutal uppercuts and having great matches. He connected.
Who the fuck did Cesaro not connect with?
I know.
Everyone loved him. You couldn't make that guy a heel if you tried.
And now he's trying to rebuild his career in a very good tag team with Tyson Kidd.
Yes.
That's the whole other story. But what was interesting was that Triple H didn't disguise the fact, again, this is Kayfabe dead, that no, Reigns is getting booed in some cities. However, he did try to couch it a little bit, saying, oh, but some cities he's getting cheered. But here's the difference. Bryan's getting cheered in every single city. He's not getting booed in any city.
Well, and
that's the huge difference. Bryan's a pure face in a world where they don't exist anymore in wrestling, in pro wrestling.
Tellerico finger cage. The thing is what Triple H describes is very true in terms of how a wrestler can, the reaction to a wrestler can change from city to city, especially with indie circuits. But that's not true of Roman Reigns. He's applying truthful wrestling booking scenarios, but to a wrestler who that's not really the case with.
Because Reigns got booed in Connecticut.
Please point me to the show where I can hear Reigns getting cheered after winning the Rumble.
Well, I mean, that was Philadelphia. His point was trying to make, well, maybe if that wasn't in Philadelphia, it was somewhere else, he would have been cheered. No.
Oh no!
He would have been booed
in the interview,
anywhere.
he said he just got cheered and blah blah blah. But he just got
at a
cheered
house show. Something he said. He mentioned a house show,
right?
Which doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because he's the biggest fucking guy on the card.
And house shows don't have everyone.
Right.
House shows, they split the rosters sometimes, where guys take off.
Lonnie and I are thinking about going to the house show that's coming next month. Yeah, but the biggest wrestler they're announcing is a main event with Roman Reigns. I'm like, I don't. And the ticket prices have gone up since I used to go to shows.
Oh, really?
I don't want to pay.
It's not even a SmackDown either. It's just a house show.
I don't want to pay house show money to watch Roman Reigns' main event. I will pay that kind of money to go see a SmackDown.
So this is where we're at now, though. We're at now where they realize we need to have Bryan in the main event. They ruined having a huge Rumble by having Bryan fight all the way through. Whatever, that's gone again. Maybe he'll win a Rumble next year. No, year after. Who the hell knows? But the arguments against Bryan winning were like, yeah, you can't have a main event 2 WrestleManias. It's like, wow, Austin main evented 3 or 4. Hogan main evented 5. It's like, what's the difference?
Rocky,
you know? I mean, if the guy's the most popular wrestler people want to see, that's like saying, oh, this boxer has been popular 3 years in a row and is still champ. I can't see him fight again as a champ. No, that's not what it's about.
Don't give me a fucking excuse if it's got more holes in it than Swiss cheese.
I know, it's ridiculous.
It's fucking dumb.
But I also think they realize that I don't think Bryan's going to come out the champion. I think what a lot of people are predicting is that Heyman's going to turn on Lesnar, because Lesnar's getting face pops too. He's going to turn on him, and then they're going to have Reigns go heel and win the championship.
You're gross. The fans are gross. Why is he getting face pops?
Because he's a beast.
No,
and
he's not.
Scary.
He's a piece of shit.
and he can kill people.
And
anyway,
it's not scary.
but they're also probably realizing that maybe after the fact that Reigns isn't progressing in the ring, and we cannot have a 25-30-minute main event Reigns versus Lesnar because it will not go well. We need Bryan in there.
Clothesline, clothesline, clothesline,
Spear,
suplex,
yeah.
suplex, clothesline, suplex.
You need Bryan in there to nudge it along, and Bryan will be in the match like probably 3/4
You
of the
need
time.
Bryan to carry it.
Yes, that's the other. And then plus, if Bryan wasn't going to be in the main event, there's no place on the card for him. I think they realized that. Yeah, we made a major mistake here. We're gonna have him be a curtain jerker and face some random guy on the freebie show, and people would probably boo the entire rest of the event. So it was an interesting podcast. And just as an aside on Seth Rollins had a really strange night on Raw, just because when Raw started, his Twitter and Instagram account sent out
Boobs.
a nude picture of a female developmental wrestler, but Rollins is engaged to someone else. So this is all during Raw, by the way. So his fiance tweeted out 2 nude pictures of Seth Rollins while Raw was going on. It's absolutely totally bizarre. The other bizarre part about it is that if you went to the Superstar page in WWE, the new picture that Rollins tweeted out, hacked or not, was on WWE.com. Totally bizarre. Rollins apologized. It was either it was hacked, I don't know, or it was one of the things where you get a picture and you hit tweet by accident instead of saving or something, and it went out and you didn't realize it. Just bizarre. But I don't think Rollins is going to get punished, which is good, because Rollins is the only pure heel in the company right now that people are actually booing, and booing like 100%. So they need Rollins. Rollins has stepped up and they need him going forward.
Pure.
Any other highlights from the awesome podcast? They talk about China Hall of Fame.
No.
And Triple H said, I don't want my 8-year-old Googling her and seeing her basically as a porn star, even though they have basically murderers in the Hall of Fame. So I mean, there's that, which is interesting. And the fact that, he dumped China, and then China just now claims that Triple H hit her. Really weird stuff.